Much like the actual apocalypse, the apocalypse mystery is just a bit all over the place. Hello everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire, looking at another mystery for the first edition Pathfinder Oracle. Today, we are looking at the Apocalypse mystery, and it's a bit of a mess. But before we get into all of that, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. Or if you've already gone on ahead and listed yourself on such an incredible roster of legendary heroes, then go on down to hit the like button and share the video far and wide. But now, let's start talking about the Mystery Apocalypse and why you probably want to avoid this one. Now, the class skills that this particular mystery gives to you are Bluff, Disguise, Stealth, and Survival. Now, Bluff is not bad. Again, as we've covered before with the previous mysteries, you have a high Charisma score, and it's a pretty solid skill to have if you're the party face. Disguise, you have magical means of making use of that. Stealth isn't bad, but unlike the Shadow mystery, this doesn't build into you being able to maximize the effectiveness of stealth. And Survival, I guess, kind of fits thematically with the Apocalypse kind of lore and feel, but it just is an odd choice, and it's not something you're really going to be able to invest a lot of your hard-earned skill ranks into. The bonus spells you get aren't all that much better. You get Death Watch when you hit 2nd level, Summon Swarm at 4th, which is maybe not bad as far as defensively as far as swarms go. It is a summon spell, which is useful, but it's just a bit more hit or miss than your standard issue summon monster spells. Then you have Explosive Runes at 6th level, Ice Storm at 8th level, Insect Plague at 10th level, and Circle of Death at 12th, Vision at 14th, Incendiary Cloud at 16th is probably the best spell that you get as a bonus here, and then Meteor Swarm at 18th level. Now, this is such a wide, eclectic mix of different bonus spells. They all, I guess, again, kind of fit within those themes of the Apocalypse, you know, plagues of insects, swarms and stuff, different horrible storms of ice, and then these incendiary clouds. All of that kind of makes sense thematically, but a lot of these spells, just for their pure mechanical benefit, aren't the best. Explosive Runes is not necessarily a bad spell in terms of the damage it deals, but it does require some setup in order to get it to work right. Though, again, depending on how you're playing, maybe you can maximize that effectiveness, but overall, in a straight-up fight, probably not something that's going to be coming up very often for you. And the revelations really aren't much better. They're so hit or miss. They're kind of all over the place too. It's hard to tell whether they wanted this to be a kind of Oracle build that was good at melee, good at spell casting, or some kind of a mix of both, because it's in trying to be applied to both kinds of builds, they end up not doing great at any of them. So, to start us off with the first round of revelations here, we have Defy Elements. You choose one energy type, acid, cold, fire, electricity, or sonic damage, and you gain energy resistance 5 to that type. At 5th level, and every 5 levels after, you may choose another energy or increase the selected energy resistance by 5 to a maximum of 20. Now, a good one to pick out would be something like Fire, just because of how common fire resistance and fire immunities are. There's a lot of fire damage that does get thrown around. There's a lot of these creatures that are immune to fire are typically also dealing fire damage. Red dragons being one of your classic examples there. But still, getting a little bit of a spread can be good, and also if you're playing a race that has an innate energy resistance, then stacking onto those can be really helpful as well, really boost the benefit of that. Then we go on from there to Dust to Dust. Once a day, you can cause weapons around you to shatter in their wielder's hands. You attempt a single combat maneuver check using your caster level and charisma modifier in place of your attack bonus and strength. every manufactured weapon in a 10-foot radius takes 1d4 times your charisma modifier in damage. And then at 11th level, it goes up to dealing 1d6 times your charisma modifier in damage. And this is usable twice a day at 10th level. Now, the limited usage does kind of hurt, but the reason why I've rated this to either being a good ability or a very, very bad ability here is because this doesn't mention the weapon's hardness. I would presume that this ignores a weapon's hardness, but if it doesn't, then you're not really getting a whole lot of damage out of this. In fact, more often than not, you're probably not getting any, except for maybe chipping away at the hardness. So consult your DM, but my recommendation on it, or my recommended read and interpretation of this, is that this bypasses an object's hardness to deal just straight hit point damage and actually have a shot at breaking the weapon, or weapons as the case may be. Otherwise, this ability is absolute garbage. Then we have Erosion Touch, also another one that you can select at your first level. You make a melee touch attack and deal 1d6 damage a level to objects or constructs. If used against an object in another creature's possession, treat this as a Sunder attempt, usable once a day plus 1 use every 3 levels. Now, this is great for when you're dealing with constructs, just because some of them can be such an incredible pain to deal with, so this can be great. The only thing is, it's a melee touch attack, and this is a build that seems to be split between either focusing in on your spell casting or getting in and up close in melee. This doesn't really do a lot to maximize either your strengths. It just kind of leaves you spread out a little bit, but still, this is not a bad ability. The next one, though, is a great ability, and that's Near Death. You gain a +2 insight bonus on saves against diseases, mind-affecting effects, and poisons. At 7th level, this applies on saves against death effects, sleep effects, and stunning. At 11th level, the bonus increases to a +4, and the fact that this is an insight bonus is amazing. An insight bonus means that this is going to be stacking with several other different bonus types. So if you're throwing on a Cloak of Resistance, the bonus from your Cloak of Resistance will stack with this insight bonus. All the way around, this is a really great, really broad defensive effect that will benefit you whether you're deciding to lean into going the full spellcaster route, or if you're going into the being more of a melee build. Now, moving on from there, we then come around to Pass the Torch. Once a day, as a swift action, channel the energies of the apocalypse through your body, taking 1d4 fire damage on activation, and at the start of every turn it's active. Any creature starting its turn adjacent to you takes 1d6 fire damage, +1 every round this has been active. This is usable a number of rounds equal to 1/2 your oracle level, and ending the effect is a free action. At 5th level and every 5 levels after, you can use this one more time a day. So remember when I talked before about how fire resistance and fire damage or fire resistance and fire immunity are the most common types of resistance and immunities out there? That does a lot to put a damper on the effect of this ability. That, and then the fact that you're having to deal damage to yourself. Now, if you take energy resistance fire, I would assume that you are negating that damage right off the bat. At least that's my take on it. And I can't imagine a lot of DMs would go, oh no, you're willingly taking the damage. You are just doing this damage to yourself. So it bypasses the resistance. But I can see that being a possibility. But the other thing is that this damage doesn't scale. It doesn't scale at all. So that makes this just so pitiful for you in the long run, even without fire resistance and fire immunity. This just doesn't do that much for you as an ability, and the limited usage here is just terrible. You're better off just throwing out a fireball spell. Well, as an oracle, you don't really have access to fireball, which that doesn't really do much for you in that instance, but still, you're better off just doing regular blasting spells in every single case of this. This is just a bad ability all the way around, just absolutely terrible. And it gets worse if you are taking the damage, so, you know, it is what it is. It's just awful. Pass on it. But then we come to another terrible ability, Spell Blast. As a swift action, whenever you confirm a critical hit against an opponent with a spell attack that requires an attack roll, you can immediately try to bull rush the target in any direction. You don't provoke an attack of opportunity for this attempt. That's about the only good thing to this, is that you don't provoke an attack of opportunity. Now, spells that require you to make an attack roll. There are some, but scoring a critical hit against them, I mean, that's a 1 in 20 chance. And then you have to confirm the critical hit, so again, that's going to be relatively low-ish odds. Then you get to roll to see if you can make the bull rush attack, and you're just using the standard bull rush rules, which, depending on how you've built, if you're going with a lower strength build, as what we have here, it's relatively mediocre strength with the stat array we recommended before, you're not really going to have a whole lot of success. Don't forget, you're also a 3/4 base attack bonus progression. You're not getting a base attack bonus every level that you take of Oracle, so you're going to have pretty low odds of getting this to really do anything for you. Again, Spell Blast is just bad. Next is Unstoppable Overrun. You can make overrun combat maneuvers against opponents that are 2 size categories larger than you. At 5th level, gain Improved Overrun as a bonus feat. At 10th level, gain Greater Overrun. You don't need to meet the prerequisites to gain these. This, I can only imagine being useful is if you are going with a high strength build and you're taking Oracle with the Apocalypse Mystery for like a 1 or maybe 2 level dip at most to be able to gain access to this. And even then, to gain the full benefits, you need to take a couple of at least 5 levels into this. 10 if you want to get up to Greater Overrun. All the way around, not worth it. I mean, the only real benefit here is just that that 1 level dip, so that way you can make overrun combat maneuvers against opponents 2 size categories larger than you. Because just for a flat out normal single class Oracle, it's the same trouble with Bull Rush up above. You don't have a good attack bonus progression. Your strength score with this particular build and stat array is not the best. It's okay, but it's not the best, so you're going to really struggle to make good use of this. Not only that, but again, this is a mystery that isn't really building you into being an exclusively melee-focused class. This is pretty split between being a blasting spellcaster and some kind of weird melee hybrid without really giving you the tools to be great at either of them. So all the way around, Unstoppable Overrun is another terrible ability for you to select from. Then we come to something that's a fair bit better, Power of the Fallen, something that's available to you when you hit 5th level. Touch a dying creature to transfer its life energies as death knell, except to any ally within 30 feet, including yourself, and you can apply the enhancement bonus to Strength, Dexterity, or Constitution. This is usable a number of times equal to your Charisma modifier. And that's not bad. Getting an enhancement bonus to your stats is pretty good. This could help with some things if you had a different attack bonus progression, but it just doesn't mesh or stack very nicely together. All the way around, just not a bad ability, but this is definitely something that's better off being used to support other builds or boosting your Constitution or Dexterity, something to keep you alive and in the fight. Then, at 7th level, you gain Destructive Roots. Cause the ground in a 5-foot radius around you to crumble and become difficult terrain. As a move action on following rounds, you can concentrate on this area, as though concentrating on a spell to increase the radius by 5 feet, up to 30 feet max. You stop concentrating if you move from your starting point. Now, creating difficult terrain? Okay, fine, that's good. But this is still difficult terrain for you as well, and there's plenty of ways for an opponent to bypass this. You have to concentrate on this. It costs you It costs a standard action to activate this, and then it costs you a move action on following rounds to keep it going. All the way around, this does a lot to cripple you. This ability does a lot to limit your effectiveness. Unless you're in a narrow area and you're blocking opponents from advancing or blocking their retreat, this is going to be a bad ability for you to use. Not good at all. And then we also have Doomsayer at 7th level. Utter a dire prophecy to terrify your enemies and leave them shaken. Shaken's a good debuff, so why is this still bad? Well, the target must be within 30 feet and be able to hear you, and it lasts as long as the enemy isn't 30 feet of you. There's problem 1 right there. And you use a move action to continue doomsaying each round. So again, another ability that's crippling you as far as action economy goes. And this can't cause a creature to become panicked or frightened. Also great debuffs to be able to throw out there, even if they were shaken by another effect. And at 15th level, it only takes a swift action each round instead. Hooray, at 15th level, far too late, this now becomes sort of a bit better for you to use without entirely crippling you. Again, Doomsayer's just terrible. The Apocalypse list just has a whole litany of terrible abilities. And lastly, for their capstone ability, we have Final Revelation, which is actually not bad. I kind of like it. Anytime you cast a spell or use an ability that inflicts 1 or more negative levels, the effect gives an additional 1d4 negative levels, which is a huge debuff. That's amazing. That's great right there, but it still gets better. Whenever you confirm a critical hit against a creature, including a melee, ranged, or spell attack, as a swift action, you can curse the creature as the bestow curse spell, except the creature doesn't get a will save to resist the effects, and spell resistance doesn't apply against this ability. That's a great kicker to have there, and it applies to any number of options that you have available to you, melee, ranged, or spell attacks, and you're guaranteed to be doing all of those at one point or another. So that's just a kicker that doesn't even have to follow along with your spells. This is anything you're doing when you get a critical hit. So your odds of actually making use of that kicker ability there are going to be really useful. Now, with the above, anytime you're using a spell or an ability that inflicts negative levels, giving additional negative levels, that is a specific scenario. But if you're doing this, being able to inflict negative levels is a huge debuff for your enemies. It does so much to lower their effectiveness and bring them down to a point where it's much easier for you and your allies to absolutely pummel the daylights out of them. I cannot understate how useful this is. If you decide to go Apocalypse, it's specifically for this ability to get to this debuff point, and really you're probably playing in a game where you're starting at or near level 20 anyways, because standard campaigns where you're starting somewhere around the 1 to 10 mark, you're probably not going to see this ability at any given point. So overall, though, Apocalypse is just bad. Blasting is not the most effective route for a spellcaster to go, much less a divine spellcaster, and with the bonus spells that you get, I mean, it's just not a pretty look all the way around. And even then, the array of abilities that you get is just such a strange, eclectic mix that doesn't mesh or synergize in a lot of great ways. And where there are synergies, they produce effects that are mediocre at best to damn near outright useless. But what do you think? Go on down to the comments below and let me know your thoughts. Did you like today's video? Did you dislike it? Have I been overly harsh on the Apocalypse mystery? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Hit those like or dislike buttons and we'll engage in discussion. And remember, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamers Den. But with all that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night.